Your attention, please.
Let's travel back to the 1980s of Zambia Airways, known as one of the best airlines in the whole of Africa and the first national airline from the independent countries of the Southern African region to fly to America, with one of the biggest airplanes of the time, the DC-10, the Nkwazi. This was more than just a plane, it was a symbol of greatness, a sign of great achievements. It represented the independent country of Zambia on every runway and every airport it landed on. Zambia Airways was the country's pride and glory, the flag carrier. The red, green, black, orange and the country's eagle would soar into the skies, and we had it, Zambia Airways, and now the rebirth.
Yeah, you're flying better when you're flying Zambia, Zambia Airways. We're getting better every day.
When you take your seat on Zambia Airways, amazing things start to happen.
Zambia Airways was founded in 1964 after the reconstitution of the Central African Airways, which was the national carrier for the Central African Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. So with the path to independence in 1964 of Zambia and Malawi, this led to the creation of three new national airlines of Zambia, Malawi and Southern Rhodesia, the country now known as Zimbabwe after its own independence. But these three airlines were fully owned subsidiaries of the Central African Airlines. They were relatively autonomous but relied on the Central African Airlines technical, managerial and financial assistance. Thomas M. D. Mtine was appointed as the first chairman of the Zambia Airways, and Mr. R. P. Hartley was the first general manager of the company. And in the February of 1964 at the Lusaka airport, the Prime Minister, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, and members of the cabinet welcomed the first DC-3 in the colors of the Zambia Airways. The aircraft was the first of the airline's fleet, which consisted of 2 DC-3s and 3 DHC-2 Beavers, which were intended to operate on domestic services. And on the 1st of September 1967, Zambia Airways became independent of the Central African Airways, and the Zambia Airways Corporation was founded in order to take over Zambia Airways. The fleet of aircrafts was painted the new color scheme and the national symbol of the flying eagle on the fin.
Today, Alitalia continues this great Italian
The technical and managerial assistance was provided by Alitalia. 2 BAC-111s were delivered and the aircraft operated both domestic flights linking Lusaka, Livingstone and Ndola, and the international services that flew to Kenya, Malawi, Tanzania and the Democratic Republic of Congo, then known as Zaire. Zambia Airways began the route to fly from Lusaka to London with stops in Nairobi, Kenya and Rome, Italy, and the Douglas DC-8 was leased from Alitalia. Zambia Airways would go on to change its logo, and in the November of 1968, a charter subsidiary named the National Air Charter Zambia was formed in 1974, and in that year the first Boeing 707 joined the Zambia Airways fleet. And in 1975 the contract with Alitalia came to an end, and a similar agreement was signed with Aer Lingus. And with the introduction of the Boeing 707, this enabled Zambia Airways to launch a direct flight from Lusaka to London and Frankfurt in 1975 and 1976 respectively, and a Boeing 737-200 was delivered directly from the aircraft manufacturer. The contract with Aer Lingus came to an end, and another was signed with the Ethiopian Airlines.
The DC-10 is here.
And in the July of 1984, it was here, the epitome of Zambian aviation, the DC-10, nicknamed Nkwazi, the eagle, the flying emblem of Zambia, the national symbol, the country's pride and glory. It was the airline's first wide-body airplane with a passenger capacity of 230 people. The new DC-10 was delivered from McDonnell Douglas to Zambia Airways, and it was received by the managing director, Mr. Oliver Chama, and the chief pilot, Mundwe Godfrey Mulindika, with a tie-cutting ceremony, and Zambia became the 60th country in Africa to acquire the DC-10. And on the 26th of April 1988, Zambia Airways launched its first flight from Lusaka to New York via Monrovia in Liberia, and Zambia became the first nation from the independent countries of the Southern African region to fly to America.
Reckon that this flight to JFK is a major breakthrough on our part. major breakthrough because never in the history of the independent states of Southern Africa have we had such an achievement. And naturally, we are very proud of it.
The Inkwazi can carry up to 230 passengers. It has 175 seats in the popular economy class, 33 in the stable business class, and 22 in the 5-star quality first-class cabin. The Inkwazi arrived in America. Captain Alex Sakala told the passengers, who were all looking out through the windows, that the imposing structures they were seeing below were part of the Manhattan skyline. A few minutes later, he brought the aircraft to a safe landing.
And the occasion was celebrated with a cocktail party in the United States, promoting tourism in Zambia through the new route.
Captain Mulundika and senior airline officials welcomed the guests to the reception. Information about Zambia and its attractions was available to the guests. There was even a special pictorial display.
The Inkwazi was a status of comfortability, class and luxury. Its major destinations were London, Frankfurt and Rome, with the addition of the New York route in 1988.
Destinations have been London, Frankfurt and Rome. The New York flight is the latest and comes after years of meticulous planning.
Zambia Airways was known as the airline that connected Southern Africa to the rest of the globe. People would travel to Zambia to fly to the different parts of the world. And the airline played a vital role during the fight for independence of the neighboring countries, as freedom fighters of Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Namibia, Angola and South Africa would connect to the rest of the world in rallying the people in their fight for independence, as Zambian pilots became an inspiration to others. Like the story of Captain Alex Sakala, who was one of the first Africans to fly the Boeing 737 to Johannesburg during South Africa's apartheid era. And this shocked the white people as word got around that an African was flying such a plane. And while in the airport, a black South African woman ran to him and hugged him for what he represented to his fellow Africans. And what made Zambia Airways the symbol of glory was the people who worked there, from the cleaners, the security, the engineers, to the pilots, who made the passengers feel safe in their hands as they fly through the skies. Like the veteran pilot, Captain George Grebes, seen here being presented with a certificate for his dedication and outstanding work by Mr. Gray Zulu. The pilots founded the Zambia Pilots Association with their first president, Captain Charles T. Mbilika. And the people who worked at Zambia Airways gave their lives to this profession, and a part of history being told through the stories of the flight attendants. The training for the first flight attendants was said to be provided by Alitalia. Becoming a stewardess was one of the most prestigious and coveted jobs for most women throughout the 1960s to the 1990s. Women like Marilyn Palmer Pearson and Laurencia Naliambai Litia. And these women would become the face of Zambia Airways hospitality in the skies. Elizabeth Fundafunda was one of the first trained Zambia Airways flight attendants. She would go on to become a chief of the cabin crew, seen here with an unaccompanied minor. The airline was known for its good service provided by the flight attendants. The air hostess would attend to the passengers, serving them food and drinks, rendered help if any was needed, providing information and informing everyone on any updates. They would give instructions to the passengers on safety procedures in case of any emergency. They flew thousands and thousands of miles around the world representing the country. The airline would hold its annual Miss Zambia Airways beauty pageant. The cabin service contest was used as a way of advertising, and the crowned winner would become the face of the airline. Like air hostess Mutinta Nkombo, the 1990 contest winner, who would go on to feature in the marketing campaigns and promotions for Zambia Airways, from TV commercials to magazines, with a grand prize of $2,000 and a trip for two to the Bahamas. Zambia Airways had their own in-flight magazine called the Ndeke Tales, Ndeke meaning plane, and built their headquarters at Ndeke House in Long Acres, Lusaka. And today the building is the headquarters of the Ministry of Health. It was said that Zambia Airways owned a lot of properties, from Ndeke Hotel, the housing units in Lusaka, to properties in New York and London. And at its height, the airline had a workforce of over 2,000 employees. So, Why was a corporation with such a reputation still be liquidated by the government voluntarily? This was said to be caused by the increase in the airline's debt. The managerial structure of the company, because Zambia Airways had too many managers who were living abroad, and that it had a massive staff of over 2,000 people, Zambia Airways made losses in the clearing process with other airlines. Because of how unstable the value of the kwacha was, the kwacha was fluctuating on a day-to-day basis, causing the airline paying the discrepancies. So in the December of 1994, the government of Zambia decided to put the national carrier into liquidation by selling it in parts. Its assets were sold off easily by the liquidators, as the brokers from all over the world came to the maintenance base to buy the spare parts and equipment at a cheap price. And the selling off of Zambia Airways properties in London, New York, Tokyo, Nairobi, Joburg, Dar es Salaam, Rome and Frankfurt, the hotel, and many other local properties in the towns in which Zambia Airways operated in. The liquidation of the airline led to more than 2,000 people being unemployed, and the last to be sold was the DC-10, the Nkwazi. It was sold to Monarch Airlines in 1996, and this was the last time Zambians would see their beloved aircraft in its colors, flying into the skies and never to return as the Nkwazi. Monarch Airlines retired the DC-10 in 2002 and later scrapped the aircraft in 2003 and donated the north section to the Manchester Airport Aviation Viewing Park. Zambia Airways was revived with a joint venture of the Ethiopian Airlines and the Zambian government through the Zambia Industrial Development Corporation. The relaunch of the airline was scheduled in 2018, but due to the delays, it was launched in the December of 2021, with the Zambian government owning 55% and Ethiopian Airlines having 45% of the shares. Zambia Airways launched its flight from Lusaka to Ndola, Livingstone, Mfulwe, Solwezi, Harare and Johannesburg. The airline has 4 Dash 8-400s and 2 Boeing 737-800s. Zambia Airways has come a long way through the years, from its inception to the liquidation and now the rebirth, to finally have its wings in the skies, to fly again in hoping to become the nation's pride, the flag carrier on the African continent, and to become one of the best airlines on the world stage, Zambia Airways.